Hello, everyone. I'm John DeBenedictis with the National Soccer Coaches Association of Canada, and I'm hosting a conversation about the World Cup for Canada and aspirations off the field. And with me, I have guests. Also with the NSCAC is Richard Bucciarelli. I'll give you a chance to introduce yourselves in a minute. But Richard has written an article which appeared in our last February newsletter, online newsletter, that talks about what we're going to talk about today. There's Blasis, who's the voice of the CPL and has been voice of TLN and OMNI TV. And we'll give you a chance to introduce yourself as well as Jamie MacLeod, who's president of the Voyageurs supporters group, which is a supporters group that follows our national team around and tries to get everyone to create an atmosphere to make Canada more of a unfriendly place for visitors. So let's start with Richard to give us a little quick in.
Yeah, all right. Well, thank you everyone for watching, whether it's live or later on, whenever you see this. And my name is Richard Bucciarelli. I'm working with the National Soccer Coaches Association of Canada as a director of sports science, and been on lots of these webinars, and it's given me an opportunity to speak with and interview and talk soccer with lots of awesome guests, including the two that we have today. So it's great to see you guys, and looking forward to our talk. And I did write an article, maybe we can speak about it a bit later, but it's actually the second edition of it. I wrote one initially in 2019, more or less discussing, I guess, some things that suggestions really that I had for fans of Canadian soccer, people who want our national teams to do better, what they can do, to help. Funny that I wrote it in 2019 after some not so good performances by both our men's and women's teams in that year. And, here we are, just about 3 years later, and on the field, in any case, the results have been much better. So, that's why I rewrote the article, changed a few things, but some of the suggestions in there are applicable both then and now. So we'll see where the discussion goes. Yeah.
And Alf, the Blasis, give us a little quick intro.
Well, thanks for having me. Nice to be back. I have been a television producer for going on 30 years or so, with OMNI Television initially, later on with TLN Television. I've also dabbled in other activities, including magazines, podcasts, most recently radio. So have had an opportunity to work across different media and covered soccer across all those media. So happy to be back to join everyone on this discussion today.
Great. And then we have Jamie MacLeod. And Jamie, I think first time I got to know you, you had just written a book, if I'm not mistaken. And so maybe you want to talk about that, originally from the West Coast, and now he's with the Voyageurs. So give us a bit of background.
Yeah, that's really going a long ways back, because I remember doing I think it was a satellite broadcast with Tony Waiters with the NSCAC. I don't know, what year was that? Would that have been 89, 99?
Probably, because we did, we didn't have internet like we do today. So we were, I think, working through phone lines when we did, basically, they weren't called webinars. What were they called? Well, the old-fashioned technology. But
people gathered in rooms watching satellite broadcasts. It was pretty amazing. But that actually reminds me of something, that at the Hamilton game, when the game ended, people were dancing. It's something I've never seen. It wasn't just cheering; people were dancing in the stands. And one of the thoughts I had was, I wish Tony could have seen this. And it's just that occurred to me right at the end of that game. And then shortly after that, you got hold of me, and I thought that was interesting. So, anyway, sorry, my name's Jamie. I run the Canadian Soccer Supporters Group, and as you're aware, I've been poking around in soccer in various degrees for a long time, helping out people like Tony Waiters and whatnot with his books, and I got into the supporters side of it when I came to Toronto in 2007, and sort of been running the supporters section for Canadian soccer ever since. And things have really taken off now. We're in a different world now from 2008 or 2000. And back in 1996, when the Voyageurs were first started in Edmonton, of course, everything's changed. We've gone from 6 or 7 soccer nerds in the stand to selling out 4,000 seats in 8 minutes at BMO Field. It's quite a different world.
Yeah, and I certainly remember going to Canada games. I remember playing when we played Mexico. We had a friendly against Iran, and I thought I was the minority there. It was like Canada was the away team, and I think it wasn't until the supporters group way back then. I remember them starting with a small group, and really trying to change the way fans experienced the game. More like the European singing, it's as opposed to just watching a game and cheering when your team scores or booing when the referee makes a mistake. So I think the supporters groups have been a huge part of the success of not just the Canadian sports group Voyageurs, but the Red Patch Boys and all those groups with the TFC, and now that's happening across the MLS. And some of the things that we've noticed in changes is, the MLS, for example, set a brand new record, I believe, on the weekend for attendance. Our national teams, men's teams, like you said, Jamie, we're selling out in record time. TV ratings have even improved with the game against Mexico, I think, where we actually played the same night as a Toronto Maple Leafs home opener. And Toronto Maple Leafs always top ratings, and I think that the Canada game outdrew them. Maybe Al, if you want to talk a bit about what's been going on in that field.
Well, I can speak to the fact that there's since 2019 when Richard penned the article that originally, the One Soccer, the streaming service, didn't exist at the time. So it's only been since 2019 that Media Pro Canada developed this streaming service, and they in fact made a 10-year commitment to show every Canadian men's national team, Canadian women's national team, Canadian Premier League, and Canadian Championship matches. Because they saw obviously the potential for growth. They were looking ahead to the fact that 2026 we're going to be a co-host of the World Cup, and I think that they saw the development at the grassroots and the opportunity that they could be able to draw on a substantial viewership, and they put a lot of investment in production facilities, in mobile equipment, in content creation over the course of the last couple of years. And you can probably notice that over the last year or two, they've added some innovative technology, especially to Canadian Premier League games. You might remember the virtual stadium that was created during the 2020 Island Games. They did a lot of games last year on remote from the Winnipeg bubble, where all the teams were gathered for the first month of the year. And all those games, by the way, were produced out of a studio in Mississauga. And I was a part of many of those games. So they've invested quite a bit of money in the game and creating the ability to have these games available across Canada through the streaming service. Now, the benefit is that Sportsnet has been able to pick up that service and piggyback it onto their distribution network right across Canada. And as you mentioned, John, the most recent matches in I think even the January games may have either reached that total or come very close to reaching that million total across Sportsnet. And so that's been kind of the evolution of how Media Pro has invested in soccer and has been able to create this new platform for people to watch and to follow the game.
Great. And Richard, you talked about in your you also mentioned some of these statistics in terms of attendance, and there was a study I think that you quoted in your article. Maybe you want to talk about that.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess the kind of the point that I had made in 2019, which I think is, you know, it's something I talk about a lot. You know, I encounter, you know, whether it's through my business or the players I work with and the teams I work with, that, you know, often you hear from, you know, Canadian fans, sort of an expectation that, you know, our team should be better and we should be, you know, we should be getting better results. But also there's often, you know, kind of a criticism that, well, there isn't enough money and there isn't enough investment, and whether that money is towards putting the games on TV, whether that money is towards facilities, training camp, getting better exhibition games, hiring better coaches, all of it, paying the players more, whatever, right? And so the point that I was making was, well, okay, I mean, that money, you know, if we want that kind of investment, then, you know, what we need to do is we need to show that there's an audience, you know, a potentially large audience of Canadian soccer fans that are going to want to watch all of the national team games, and then by extension, not just the national team games, but any of the other, you know, kind of higher levels of soccer in Canada. And that was also kind of what I was mentioning with the article. I wrote it in 2019, which is the first year that we had the CPL, and as Alf mentioned, was before One Soccer. So, you know, I think at the time you had to watch on YouTube, was it, or if you wanted to watch CPL games, I think.
Well, they actually Media Pro actually launched One Soccer with the launch of the CPL.
Okay, it was at the same time. Okay,
so
I
basically April of that year. So I don't know exactly when you wrote the article, but it was around about the same time.
Yeah, it was in the fall. Yeah, so you know, I was saying that, you know, often, you know, again, like if we want you know, young aspiring players to see that there's more, you know, a good potential salary they can get out of it, and you know, kind of make our professional game and our national team you know, more popular and feel a little more, you know, like John said, like what it would feel like in Europe or South America or whatever, then, you know, we need to watch, we need to support. And the revision of the article that I did this year, really, you know, what I cited, which were some good statistics, is that so attendance at the national team games, men's and women's, have been really good. They've been better than they've ever been before. And the Canadian MLS clubs, including, I know Jamie mentioned, you know, TFC, and, you know, have also been good. And as a matter of fact, in Canada, in the last year for which they took the data, which was I believe was 2019. I'll go back and check. MLS outdrew the NHL in Canada. So you know, we're getting a good audience for the Canadian national teams, and we're getting a good audience for the Canadian MLS teams. So I'd like to see now, can we get a better audience for CPL? Can we get a better audience even for League One, and perhaps also for university and college teams? Because if we do that, you know, then eventually perhaps there'll be some more advertising revenue and everything that comes out of that too. So.
Good. Let me get Jamie in on here and go to the fans' point of view, which is the Voyageurs. You know, what have you guys done? How important do you feel, you know, Voyageurs have been, and what are you looking for in going into the future?
Well, it's been, you know, we've sort of been beating the drum a long time, and, you know, I was trying to get people into stadiums, whether it was the 86ers or Canada games, you know, from the early 90s. And about, I think around 2008, we started the Support Local Football, Support Local Soccer campaign. So it was, and that came about largely from, well, I mean, it exists in other parts of the world, but what it came down to was you'd be kind of arguing with people, but the support local argument kind of left the football aficionado without a counter argument, right? So, you know, they would say, well, I'm not going to go support this because it's not Italy. I'm not going to go support this because it's not Bayern Munich or Man United or whatever, right? But, you know, all you had to do is point to all those lower division teams that had really strong supporters cultures and where people supported locally. And it was really hard for them to argue against that. So that's one of the most effective things I think we've done. It's just the sort of support local soccer argument. With respect back to One Soccer, with Alf talking about the launch of that with Campiel, I wonder, you know, if it had launched 2 or 3 years earlier before this sort of apocalypse of streaming services. Because I think what happened was a lot of people were almost annoyed that there was another streaming service for them to buy, even though it was something that they wanted and for something that they'd, you know, clamored for a decade. I think that was a bit of a difficult hurdle for them to overcome. But I don't know. I think the coaches play a huge role in this because I've, you know, banged my head on the coaching wall the whole time I've been doing this. And there was, you know, we took out a booth at the Ontario Soccer Convention, Coaches Convention, right, a few years ago. And I had someone come with me to help me out, and they're like so excited. And I said, no, these people are going to be really mean to us, right? And they were. I mean, it was brutal. I got so angry at one point, you know, with an Ontario district, someone who ran a district, and you know, who said to us, I would never take a team to see the Canadian men's national team. And I said, what? This is your job. This is your job. I never want to hear you say that again. I think you should lose your job right now. And then he came back about a half hour later, apologized. But that's the attitude that's there. It's deep within you know, and it's changing now. Of course, everyone wants to buy tickets now. But you know, supporting local is not. I'm not saying you shouldn't be critical of your team if it isn't successful, but you still have to support them. And that has to be the fundamental thing. It's about support and building something for the future, and you can't do that by just being negative all the time.
That was, yeah, sorry to interrupt, Jamie. That's exactly what I wrote back in 2019. I said it's put your money where your mouth is. You know, if you want better results, the best way to get better results is to watch.
Yeah.
You know, because that brings, you know, if advertisers know that there's lots of people watching, then you know they'll pay.
Yeah, we are not good customers.
No.
Yes, and I was going to get to that, maybe get a bit controversial. I remember reading an article as well. I remember this was around the Toronto FC when I think Jovinko first came on. And they covered the Toronto Blue Jays training camp in the Toronto media every day. You'd hear about you know, college football, which wasn't even playing at that time of the year, NFL trades. And here we are just before the start of Toronto FC season, and they were in training camp, and there was nothing, certainly on radio, nothing covered about it. And I think I called my article is Toronto FC gone to the moon, because it was a good team. I think they went to the finals the year before, and everyone should be excited, and there was no coverage. And my big beef is that I think radio is probably the worst for covering soccer. That's just my feeling. Every time I turn on sports radio, even the day of Canada-Mexico game, they would talk about it for 10 minutes and go to basketball for an hour, go switch to football for 40 minutes, and then they'd go maybe talk for soccer for 5 minutes, and then they'd go back. And I actually counted, I flipped stations between the two main sports stations in Toronto 40 times, and only once did I actually catch them talking a bit about soccer. So that's a big beef about how can we get soccer on the radio more often and in the conversations, even in, you know, sometimes you listen to a music station and before a big Blue Jay game or their training camp, they're talking about it. They're not doing that with soccer. Is it the CSA that's not doing enough publicity? Is it TSN? So let's start out.
I can give you, yeah, I mean, I can give you a little bit of maybe a little bit of background in terms of how sports are selected, at least from the perspective of sports radio, sports television highlights, and so on. And for the most part, I mean, most I would say, most sports producers or editors or people who are in charge of sports radio talk shows or sports television highlight shows will take their cue from the general consensus is who's the most popular team in the city, or what's been the most popular game, or what drew the most attention. And inevitably, particularly in this city or most major cities in Canada, it's going to be hockey for the most part through the course of the fall and the winter. And as we shift into spring and summer, it traditionally was baseball and then football. So soccer has really had to make some inroads over the course of the last several years. And just to go back to the examples of where we were and where we are now, and I'm sure Jamie can speak to this, it was a real challenge to find Canadian men's national team or women's national team games anywhere on television, and particularly if they were playing an away game, you had to find some obscure stream, and it was a challenge even for the diehard fan to find a game. So that's changed over the course of the last number of years, again with One Soccer coming in and really taking the thunder away from TSN and Sportsnet and saying, hey, you know what, there is a market for soccer and we're going to prove it to you. And I think that they've been able to expand their brand. And Richard, we were talking about it being, or Jamie, you mentioned it being another one of the streaming services. Well, they've managed to align TELUS, which is a cable carrier primarily in Western Canada, but they have a channel on TELUS. And the long-term objective, obviously, is to bring it into cable packages across Canada, whether it be Bell or Rogers or others, so that One Soccer can be a cable service in addition to perhaps being a streaming service. So I think that is the long-term objective. It could take a little while because there are negotiations to take place between, the carrier and the streaming service. But I think as we start to see the numbers increase, particularly if Sportsnet continues their practice of, picking up the One Soccer production, and the numbers continue to increase, and I'm really interested to see what the next window will show, particularly because Canada can clinch a spot in the World Cup in any one of those three games. So, the audience, I think, the longer it goes, that the audience will gradually increase. So I think it's been a long process to get to where we are, but I think Toronto or Canadian soccer has reached the point where it's starting to bump things off the ledger. As you said, John, I mean, they had more viewers than a Toronto Maple Leaf game. I think I was looking at those numbers earlier today. I think it did better than the Leafs home game, and it did better than a national game involving the Edmonton Oilers as well. And it did better than I think a football game as well on that same evening. So the potential is there, and again, we have to drive it. We have to be the people that drive it. We have to encourage coaches to encourage their players. And Richard, you mentioned this in your article, is encourage watch parties, encourage players to either go out to the games, and if they're not able to because of distance or cost or whatever, they can watch the games as a group, use it as a bonding exercise, and use it as a way for them to improve their skills and take something from that game, bring it back into your training session, and use it, as a training tool with your kids. So I think that's the area that we can make the most impact, as all of us in the soccer community in our various roles, is to be able to make it accessible, available across as many platforms as possible, and then encourage coaches and their teams to watch as often as possible.
Yeah, I would add that the advantages of especially for young players, right? And coaches need to encourage this, right? But the advantages for young players to watch, first of all, they're not watching enough soccer as it is, and you'll see this if you're coaching and you're talking to your players and stuff, that often they're not watching a lot of soccer on TV. They're definitely not watching a lot of live soccer. And if they do watch soccer on TV, they often are watching, whatever it is, La Liga or Serie A or the Premier League, and they'll avoid watching, Canadian soccer. And so, first of all, watching more soccer makes you a better player, hands down. There's a lot of things you learn, especially when you watch live. It's even better than watching on TV. In person, it's better because you have a better view of the field and the movement of the players and everything that's going on. And second of all, I think with young Canadians, because this is something like when I worked in Uruguay and South America, I've seen it. I know, anyone who travels and sees what it's like with kids in any other country, literally any other country in the world, they have local heroes. They have people who are from the same city, from the same little town, and we have those now. We have men and women that grew up in Mississauga and Scarborough and in BC and whatever, and are top players even in the world, not even just in Canada, right? And these are local heroes that then that gives a young player something more to aspire to than simply watching Messi and Ronaldo and whoever. So I think that the value of young players watching more Canadian soccer is really, like, you can't overstate how valuable it is for me.
Hi, Jamie.
I think that goes to our primary mission, which is building a culture for the game, and that's watching the game, being part of it's all about building a culture for it. But I just want to go back to some stuff Al said there. We're talking about these numbers. Okay, we have 1 million viewers for this game, and they have 1 million viewers for a hockey game, right? Now, it's different now because we have these streaming services and we have this technology that's allowed us to build a niche market. But where we are today is still largely shaped by a traditional media model, which is why we are where we are today, right? So you have 1 million and 1 million, but you can put 100 times more ads in that hockey game than you can a soccer game, right? We need 10 times the eyeballs than they do for another sport to make that money. And so these television stations, they're businesses, right? I'm not trying to be conspiratorial, but if you spend $100 million on the rights to something, you're not going to promote anything else. You have no interest in having soccer succeed at all, because it's a cost to you. Minute for minute that it's on TV, you're putting 10 times less ads in, and that matters, right? And it's changed now, of course, with streaming services and pay-per-view type things like that. That is a huge opportunity for us. But where we are today is shaped by that traditional business model, and it's been very, very tough to get a foothold in that, because soccer doesn't care. It doesn't matter if it's a court, a field, or a rink. They stop that game and they say, our partner is going to run ads on TV. Soccer doesn't do that, and to its credit, honestly, to its credit, I respect that, but in terms of breaking in to that traditional, those media roles, they don't want us in there.
Oh, not going to be easy. I think you mentioned how, I think it was Sportsnet spent $1 billion or whatever to get the rights to the NHL. You're right. They're not going to be too excited to promote soccer if they've just spent all that money. I think you mentioned that to me in a conversation.
They're literally a partner. Like if those leagues are financially dependent on that money coming in, they're effectively partners for that year, right? So it doesn't matter. It's not just soccer that suffers from this, right? It's volleyball. It's every other sport in the country. it's amazing how well soccer does. Soccer and rugby, we sell quite a few tickets, but most other sports don't in this country, and they're not very big organizations. So it's, you know, hockey, soccer, and then I don't even know who's next. Maybe rugby with a few employees, but they're struggling even harder than soccer is to get recognition in this country. And I think the technology that Al's talking about, right, with One Soccer and the streaming services, is a huge opportunity to build not just soccer, but all these other sports up, and not have it be dominated by, well, 3 sports basically.
And can we though? Let's just jump over to radio. You know, can we get more callers? Like, what do we do to get on there? Can we call the stations? Is that what something that's going to help have more conversations on soccer? The ratings going up. I mean, I know we've heard a little bit more than normal, but is there anything else we can do? And like you said, Richard, certainly as coaches, you know, we have to talk to our kids about our national teams, our local teams, and build up heroes. But, you know, can we do something else? You know, besides coaches having these viewing parties, can we? Should we be phoning in on shows? Your thoughts on that? Anybody, Alf or Richard?
Well, I'll tell you what, the challenge with radio is that there's, you know, there are very few that are dedicated to sports 24/7. And in fact, there are fewer now than there were last year because Bell pulled the plug. I don't know if many of you are aware, but Bell Media pulled the plug on TSN radio stations, several of them across the country. So there's only a few operating now, and obviously, you know, cost-cutting moves again. And then really, there's only, and Sportsnet is the other that has a radio brand in addition to a television brand, and I think they're operating virtually out of the same markets. So it's difficult because of the limited number of radio stations. What I think the sort of similarity to television streaming on the audio side is podcasting, and you know, the opportunity for any one of us to be able to create a podcast as a driver of you know, soccer support. And I mean, there's dozens of them out there now. I mean, Jamie, I think you're probably familiar with Waking the Red. There's a, you know, a whole bunch of podcast streaming programs that are either that discuss either the Canadian men's or women's national teams, or TFC, or CF Montreal, or the Whitecaps, or a combination of all of those things. And there's quite a few of them on the map now. And so that's an area, I think, of expansion and growth that really came about because people like you, John, were frustrated that they weren't hearing about the game on radio. And so this opportunity to really sort of expand that audio landscape and create this whole new universe of digital audio through podcasting, and it's something that I've done recently, and I've been able to do on my programs as well, to give soccer supporters another avenue, another platform to be able to listen to what they, you know, would like to hear, and they want to hear about how the team is you know, planning for the next window, how the team is training under John Herdman, who are going to be some of the key figures coming in for this window. Those are some of the discussions that are happening now in these podcasts. It's difficult to get that specific and into that kind of sort of granary of information on a typical sports radio station, but you're going to be able to find that kind of granular information from some of these podcasts. So I would go out and start to, pick up some of these services on your iPhone. See where they are and how many they are. Just do a Google search for soccer podcasts, and I'm sure dozens of them will come up. A lot of them with Canadian focus. Some will be an American focus, and obviously they're global. So you'll also be able to tune into services from all over the world. But they're available. They're there, and I think that's another area that we can support.
Right. The one of the things you mentioned in your article, Richard, was the average viewership of a CPL game on TV was only 4,367.
Yeah. So it's
we've got to help. We've got to help get those numbers up, not only in the stadium, but for across the country. 4,000 people. That's not going to excite too many sponsors and whatnot.
Yeah, and actually, I mean, Jamie raised an excellent point, which is funny enough. I hadn't thought of that. Obviously that it totally makes sense that you can't do advertisements in a soccer game. You can only do them before or at halftime or after. But in any case, it goes back to the same thing though. Like if we expect, because this is a common criticism of the league, and I'm working in the league now, and it's the league is doing for Canadian players exactly what it's set out to do, which is giving lots of opportunities for guys that just didn't, weren't quite good enough or didn't make it into the MLS academies and, become professionals right out of like high school, and if it wasn't for this league and these other clubs that are giving them a chance to play at a professional level, they would have gone to school and retired. So the league is doing what it's supposed to do, but it's like, we need more people to get excited about this league and so for me, again, in the article I went back to so coaches in those areas. York 9 United is a good example because there's lots of big soccer clubs very, very close, Vaughan, Woodbridge, whatever it is, Aurora, Richmond Hill, etc. right, that I think they need to get the players involved in it. They need to the players need to be ball boys at the games. They need to do, partner up to get, I guess, discounted tickets. And perhaps, even, if you're coaching in that area, assign your players that they have to watch, the game on One Soccer. And when the game is over, they have to maybe write a little report about whatever it is, strategy and tactics that were used by both teams, attacking, defending, who were some of the key players. Like, get people involved, get people excited about it. And again, a few thousand people watching every game is good, but if it becomes 10, 15 or 20,000, and then even at the live attendance, if that starts to go up even by 5 or 10%, I think it's going to make a huge difference. And again, like the real reason that Canadians should be supporting this league is because this league is giving opportunities to young Canadian players that they never had before. And I know you guys are older than me, but like, even in my own generation, I can tell you that was a big problem. If you weren't good enough to be, to go to Europe by age, 17 to 20, you were not playing professional soccer by the time you were 20 years old. And now we have, dozens of top Canadian players that have these opportunities. We need to get excited about it.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Can I ask a question? So,
yeah.
From the coaching level,
yeah.
How do we get a cultural component into the licensing?
Into the coach licensing.
Into the coaching licensing. Let's put a cultural component of the game into the coaching licensing right through every level. How do we do it?
Good idea.
Right?
Yeah.
I think you're bang on. It should be.
So how do we do it? And because there's crazy little things like, say you're an adult men's team, and you are, once the Voyageurs Cup became integrated across the Cup champions and the League One and CPL. Technically, when you're playing your provincial championship, you're playing to be part of the Club World Championships, right? It's crazy, it's insane, it's unlikely, but you're part of the world. You're part of world soccer, right? And I've explained that to so many people playing community soccer, and they just look at you like, "What are you talking about?" You know, they don't even know that that's part of what they're doing, right? And that's kind of incredible that there's this incredible world system, and you know, and I don't mean just at the community level, but the club level, right? Whether it's TFC or CAMPL team, you explain to them that they're part of this local system, and you win that, you go on to this, you win that, you go on to this. People find that utterly fascinating, but they have no idea. Even people that watch the game, there are these little things that we don't communicate. And where do we do it? I think the coaches are the key, because they're the ones that are with a group of kids week in, week out for a large chunk of the year or all year. And we need to reach them. Those are the people we need to reach. They are the linchpin for changing the culture in this country.
And Jamie makes a good point, and I think you know, just to sort of piggyback on top of that is the reality of, you know, how that can come about is Forge FC from the CPL, who, you know, basically is a founding member of the CPL, but they came from Sigma FC, which was a League One Ontario franchise or club or organization that eventually became Forge FC. And look at the strides that team has made in 3 years. I mean, they've now reached the CONCACAF Champions League, which is, as Jamie's pointed out, is one step removed from going to the Club World Cup, right? And so that just puts that in perspective in terms of what a dedicated program that has its roots, its origins in Southern Ontario, has been able to, you know, take the next step and go on to the Canadian Premier League, and from there go on to become a contender in the regional cup championship. So that pathway just kind of explains, you know, how as much as you said, Jamie, it could be, you know, so far from reality, but it's actually conceivable for a club of that, you know, of that small stature to build over the course of a number of years to be able to reach that objective at one point in its, you know, in its legacy. So it's an interesting point, and it's something I think has merit, that coaches should be, you know, providing this type of information for their kids, building a program that you know, can be representative not only within your community, but you can then take the next step up and become a League One Ontario licensed team, or whether you're in Quebec or BC now launching their own you know, tier 3 or division 3 type of setup that eventually funnels its way up to the national team. Because look, I mean, everybody now, regardless of you know, where you're based, has the opportunity to play for Canada. You know, you could have been born in New Westminster, BC, or you could have been born like Alphonso Davies was in Liberia and made his way to Canada, and was recognized and was given all the tools that he needed to reach his potential. So yeah, I mean, but to go back to Jamie's point, it seems a distant dream, but there is some reality to it. There is some you know, there is a pathway to be able to get to that objective.
Yeah, you know, I think that you know, whose responsibility is it? And I think, from what I understand, Jamie, as you're saying, Canadian soccer through their licensing program should make it part of their licensing. And how do you get that information out to the coaches? There are a lot of coaches, and sometimes myself, I'm not quite sure who has to win what to get where, and even the licensing program sometimes is complicated. We're not receiving any press releases as an association from the CSA to say, here's what's going on. Please tell your coaches to, promote this or that. Whose responsibility is that to try and, get to the coaches? Because there's, we're all over the place. There's coaches of recreational players, which are actually very important. I actually worked last night, first time in a long time with, I filled in for a coach for recreational program. And the first thing I asked the kids, and they were mixed between about 8 and 14. And I asked them, who's your favorite player? 4 or 5 or 6 of them didn't even have one. And two of them had, a few of them have Ronaldo and Messi. Nobody mentioned Canada. And so the recreational coaches, maybe they're not really soccer fans, and they're not, how do we get to them? Whose responsibility is it? Those are some of the questions that I would have. And I think one of the opportunities, right? Go ahead, Jamie, maybe, because I'm going to come back to you in a second.
Half a question and half an observation, because you guys are more directly involved in the coaching side. I see a very, very big difference when selling games to anyone involved in soccer. So whether they're coaches or administrators or anything, on whether it's a women's game or a men's game. Okay, so if it's a women's game, every single coach, it is there. We need to get those girls to a game. We need to provide them with role models. These are the role models. Bang, 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 bang. Absolutely, they're on top of it. But with the men, it's the opposite, right? So they're like, well, no, I mean, if it was Brazil, then I would take, I would take the team, right? But we're playing, Belize for the 8th time. So, it's different. So how do we? So part of it's inculcating that culture on people coaching the boys' side, but we need to provide them with materials, because a lot of people are parents that just got voted into the meeting and they're the coach, right? So how do we support those people? But the very first thing you need to tell them is that as soon as you become that coach, you're part of something. You're part of something connected to the entire world, but they don't know anything about it. We need to provide them with the content so that they can, pass that on to those kids. And we don't do that. And I don't know how we even expect them to know.
I'm going to just step in for 1 second. Sorry, because
yeah.
the one thing that I do notice is that when clubs themselves, they've all had a role in developing players. Whether it was that coach who took Alfonso Davies when he was 6, not necessarily to teach him the game at that age, but to excite him about the game, make him love the game. To that coach who took over at age 8 and 10, and all these different coaches who touched the athletes who are playing on our national team right now or knocking on the door, they don't seem to get a lot of credit. And if you look at the Canadian Soccer website and you look at where the players came from in terms of where they played, I was looking at this just the other day, and I was looking at all the women's national team, and you see, universities in the States getting all the glory for developing a national team player. But that player who's maybe playing for Notre Dame and who ends up on our national team, they probably played for, the Gloucester club in Ottawa, or played for, another
United,
club, Rams United, or whatever, and they're not mentioned. Can they not start to give some of the club's credit for the development of those players? I think, if you're expecting a coach to promote you, you need to pat him on the back a little bit once in a while.
I agree. Yeah, I agree, John. And it's interesting because I'll tell you, when I worked at TFC Academy, I kind of noticed that from a little bit from both sides that there is almost animosity. Like, for example, clubs often don't even want their players to go into, whether it's a TFC Academy or perhaps even to a CPL, because they see it as, we've lost a player there. So there's kind of some animosity. And then often, in the higher levels, professional clubs and stuff, that they don't do enough outreach and and as you said, don't recognize, and perhaps it's the same even with the national team. So I think it's like both sides could probably, cooperate more with each other, and for sure, youth clubs that have developed players. I mean, it doesn't cost anything to acknowledge whatever it is, Aaron Mills Soccer Club or whoever, right? And it really makes a big difference for sure. And then Jamie, because you were talking about kind of coach licensing, and I was thinking that definitely, like, if you look at the instructors on the national licenses in almost every other country. I mean, I took some in South America as an example, and if you take UEFA courses, you see this, that typically the instructors in those courses are current and former coaches in professional clubs. And so, again, our league, CPL, is a young league, and even the Canadian MLS teams are not that old. And I don't know how many Canadian coaches have been in the Canadian MLS teams. Here and there, we have a few, right, assistant coaches and stuff, right? But and the Whitecaps have had more head coaches as well. But I think it might be something that at some point to bring them in as instructors in the licensing as well, because who better to build the culture, than the coaches that are actually working there. We don't have that in our coach licensing. So anyway, just a thought that came up while you were speaking. So.
Yeah,
No.
I agree. Yep. Jamie?
I'm actually my mind's racing on how to actually do this and what we can do and create. I think there's a lot of opportunities, but just to counter some of it, I don't know if I'm screwing this up. Hamilton game or the Jamaica game? Either the Ontario futsal finals, I think, were during the Jamaica game, and I think the indoor finals are during the. Sorry, the indoor finals are during the Jamaica game. I think the futsal finals were during the Hamilton game. And there's not an inch of wiggle room to move those things to get those kids to watch that game or be at that game. None. Yeah. So how do we change that? I mean, it has to start at the top and the bottom.
Yeah.
Like both. It's we've got people, parents, and God bless them for doing it, right? Without them, there's no team. But if they don't know anything, that was the point of the book, right? That I did back in 98, right? Which was to teach those parents about the game, not the rules, but what to see in the game and how to enjoy it, so that they can be part of it. And we need to bring that maybe, to the parents and the coaches again, and just try it again.
Yep. And I know we're running out of time, but there's an exciting World Cup qualifying coming up where it looks like Canada going to go to Qatar. And Jamie,
please.
Okay. I'm confident of this group.
Anything can happen.
But you have a dream, Jamie, I think, of having a special celebration, and give us your thoughts on that. I think you let your group know. Go ahead.
About what we're gonna do?
Well, you mentioned, I think I saw somewhere in one of your posts where when Italy wins a World Cup, everyone knows where to go with the Canadian flags in Woodbridge or St. Clair, and you're suggesting that we need to do that when we qualify here with Canada in all the different cities. Is that you?
I don't want to be a jerk, but it's going to depend a lot on which team doesn't qualify. So, that's not fair.
Like, should we have a place where we all go when we, do we go to City Hall? Do we go to and get all our flags, our honking horns, and celebrate the fact that we get there?
Well, I think it's going to depend on the city. So I think you just hit the traditional soccer spots, right? Commercial Street in Vancouver, and College in Toronto, and Montreal. I guess it depends. Saint Denis. It depends on where you are. There's a little more divided there, but it's a good idea. It's just, again, I don't want to be promoting something before it happens. So what makes those things great and organic is that they're organic and spontaneous, right?
Yeah.
So how do you? I think we're going to be in a lot more World Cups going forward, and that's going to come. But there are things planned. for after the Jamaica game. But like I said, I knock on wood. I don't want to curse this.
Well, let us know so we can tell the coaches where to tell their players to go.
Absolutely.
At time.
We will. We will.
When I had a few last minute thoughts.
Well, I think, I think there should be celebrations all around the city. I mean, I don't think it necessarily has to be in any one specific place. I think every
there's going to be one big one.
There is going to be one big one. But the point I wanted to make is, every big town, every small town has a central square or a meeting point or something that is traditionally an area where people congregate and gather, and again, allowing for COVID restrictions, but hopefully by that point in time we'll have removed just about every gathering restriction. People can come out and celebrate a victory and the qualification to the World Cup, and then and then eventually once Canada is there and represented back in the unfortunate thing is it's not in the summer, it's in November and December, so it'll be a bit challenging, but we should still find an opportunity to go out and celebrate with our flags and come together as a community. So I think if there's one big parade, fantastic. If there's a lot of little ones, in different centers across the country, even better.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good one.
Maybe the biggest one in Woodbridge.
Well, that's what I meant by which team doesn't qualify. So it's Italy or Portugal, and we're going to.
Hopefully, we'll have a big Canadian.
We'll fill that
party.
Void.
Great. All right, everyone. I really again like to thank you all for being part of the panel. I wish we can go on for longer, but it's kind of been our time, and we're going to put this this webinar on our YouTube channel, and we'll put it so that everyone can watch it in its entirety, since we do want to talk about the pre-qualifying here that Canada will hopefully get into, and let everyone hear our thoughts on it. And Richard, maybe you'd like to talk about the NSCAC a little bit and membership and whatnot.
Right. So we always try to sign off. As is the case with Canadian soccer, we need support, to grow and develop. The National Soccer Coaches Association of Canada also needs support, and we're thankful to those of you that are watching this live and watching the videos and the webinars that we're doing. You need to consider becoming a member if you haven't already done so. We want coaches to tell their players and get everybody to go and watch Canadian soccer, and coaches, tell your colleagues, tell your friends that are involved in the game about thinking about a membership in our association. It's not expensive. It can be as cheap as only $30 or $40 a year with group memberships, and you get access to all the videos, all the content, my course, John's course, discounted merchandise and gear and technology, and we've got partnerships with so many different people. Basically, again, our association is a group of volunteers, trying to help out to help coaches become better and to grow the game. So again, if you're a member, thank you, and if not, consider a membership. Tell your friends, tell your colleagues. We can grow our association while we grow, support for Canadian soccer at the same time.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening, folks.
Can we just chat for a second after you're done? Or?
Yeah.
So how can we help, the Voyageurs help you guys in terms of like getting more people on board? Also, have you guys considered doing a coaching conference alongside the All-State shows?
Well, yeah, we had our convention in 2019, and the response was good. It was the first one, and we got a good turnout, and we were building, towards some other live stuff the following year, and it didn't happen. And we're still working on it now, but it's been difficult trying to confirm venues. Perhaps for the fall of this year, we're still looking at. I don't know when the next All-State show is. I think they did one online recently, didn't they?
They did a couple of
yeah.
them, yeah.
Yeah, so we didn't get involved there, but I would say for sure, if and when we confirm a live event, Voyageurs need to be there. Like we should.
So we'll do whatever we can to help.
Yeah, and that's one. And I guess the second thing will be, I have to assume a lot of the supporters are coaches, right? The people that are going and watching the games are coaches, and definitely we can do partnerships with Voyageurs, or whatever it is, a discounted membership, access to different things, and perhaps even get together at some of these live games coming up. I'm actually going to be there Sunday night with the Halifax Wanderers. So the Wanderers are coming to Toronto for preseason. I'm working with them, and we've got that Sunday off, right? There's no training, and we'll be there, and so we need to connect more at these live events too, at the games.
So sorry, but you're saying that the Wanderer is going to be here on the 27th?
That's right. We're going to be in Toronto. The club will be in Toronto for 2 weeks of preseason, from the 16th of March to the 31st.
So you guys are coming to the game, right?
That's right.
Okay. Have you got tickets arranged?
Well, they're working on it now. So
okay, because really, how many people are we talking about?
Including coaches, it would be maybe close to 30.
30?
It
Okay.
won't be that easy, right? Yeah.
Let's get you guys into the supporter section. So.
Well, yeah, I gotta talk to the GM tomorrow morning. So.
No, I'm serious, because we block off a bunch of seats, right, for the front, and then I have to kind of, like, I've got about 100 extra seats, so we can kind of stick you in the back, guys, at the back of in one of the accessible sections, at the back of 113 or 114 or 112, and that'd be kind of cool. It'd be awesome if you guys were there.
Yeah, well, I'll talk to him tomorrow, and
okay,
and yeah, we'll try to set it up. Let's do it.
All right. Let me know.
For sure.
Great. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Take care, you guys.
Good night, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.